Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the House of Kayfabe here on the YouTube, and we are reviewing the 30th anniversary of Raw. Raw XXX tonight was live just now. It happened from Philadelphia, January the 24th. Such a nostalgic moment for me. I was excited to watch this because I was thinking about the first episode of Raw, which I know is what qualifies me to be on this episode with you, the other Steve Barker. I'm Adam Harris here on the House of Kayfabe. So excited to talk about some wrestling. Mark's marking out here on the House of Kayfabe.
Because I know you said it a few times over the era of this podcast that you saw the very first one, and my wife is still new to this, having to unfortunately marry a Mark, and she just couldn't believe how small that first Raw is. She'd probably never seen it before, and they were doing like a super cut of memories back in the day, and I was like, that's the first one. And she just, because when you think of Raw, you think of filled stadiums and arenas of screaming fans, and they had a lot of screaming fans at the first Raw, but it's such an evolution of where it's come from.
Well, I don't mind if you want to just talk a little bit about that. I mean, the way it started, kind of, because you see little clips of it here and there, and I think almost everybody thinks that the 1, 2, 3 kid thing happened on the first episode of Raw, which I'm pretty sure it wasn't the first episode.
I don't think so.
It was a little bit into the run, and it was ironic that they opened with Hulk Hogan, because I don't think Hulk had come back until a few episodes into the Raw, into Monday Night Raw. I think it was towards that build of WrestleMania 9. Bret Hart would have been the world champion, going up against Yokozuna, who won the Rumble that year in '93. But as soon, and I had been watching primetime wrestling, it dates me fully, but that was the Monday night programming was. They were sitting around a table. Vince was almost always the host with like Hillbilly Jim and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan. It was a round table thing where they basically showed superstars. They basically showed matches from superstars and, Saturday Night's Main Event and Dark show tapings. I remember how starkly different it was when the siren started on Monday Night Raw. And it's the small arena, and it's all brightly lit. It was so brightly lit, for back then. And that's the other thing, is I think The Undertaker was the main event of that first match. And if I remember, like, the lights don't even dim when The Undertaker comes out.
That's
you know what I mean?
weird.
Like, it's still a cool entrance, and it's still iconic. It's still The Undertaker. But it's like not with all the spotlights and the all the accoutrement of an Undertaker entrance like we saw tonight, which I guess we'll get to.
Yes.
And that's all I really want to say is I do remember how starkly different it felt, and it was a live show, and there was Vince McMahon and Rob Bartlett and the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh my God, it was Rob Bartlett.
And Bobby Heenan was trying to get in the building. That was the other thing I remember, is that Bobby Heenan was trying to get in the building. Sean Mooney was like, wait, you're Bobby Heenan. Yeah, he like several costumes. Yeah, definitely. And the brilliance of Bobby Heenan.
Oh, he's the best. Man, I'm reading his book. Well, actually, I'm not reading his book. I'm listening to the audio book. I've got to send that to you because it's actually free on YouTube. If I think of it when I'm editing this, I might put it down in the subscription, in the description. Man, Bobby the Brain, as funny as think about how quick-witted he is and on the ball. Think about how good he is when he has a chance to write it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a good book. But anyway, Raw 30. I was not watching wrestling at 93. I have like Steve knew, have some holes in my watching. I think right around then, I come from NWA, I come from WCW, and I know that you all love this era, but by like 93, 92, 91, WCW, I mean, there was some good things. There was a Dangerous Alliance. There were some good things, but the quality had definitely degraded since, for me anyway, the pinnacle of 86, 87, 88, Four Horsemen, Dusty Rhodes. By then, Ric Flair had moved to WWE or WWF at the time. So they are so good at this. WWE has it down to a science for when they give big expectations. WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, the big four.
Yeah.
Raw 25, Raw 30.
SummerSlam. Yeah,
Summer.
Yeah.
Oh, they have this down to a science. It was, and I was wondering this too, because we're such long-term marks, would it be easy for new fans to kind of get lost in all that nostalgia on something like Raw 30?
I think that was definitely that's a great point. That's definitely something I thought was, I'm enjoying this nostalgia so much, and I love seeing those old characters that it just doesn't hit the same when the Street Profits come out or whatever it is, And I appreciate the rub they got tonight. I feel like there was, some intentional putting over in that whole segment, which we'll get to on Raw 30. But I mean, they definitely opened with some of that nostalgia, and I made a few notes about who made it in that opening package, and it's really hard to think about distilling all of that down, and again, it was the 1, 2, 3 kid. It was Shane buying WCW, I love that they put the Miz girl in there, that young girl with her face, like that's how iconic that was. That really tied the fan thing in.
Did they have the Undertaker guy in there?
I don't know if he made the cut. There was some Macho Man, there was some Stephen Ronda, which I appreciated, Stephanie screaming, "Oh, don't break my arm," perfect Stephanie McMahon stuff. So I popped for that big time. Raw was Jericho. Which even my wife, who's a casual at best wrestling fan, was like, "So are they just not going to show any of the AEW guys?" And I was like, "That's a good question. Good question."
Well, I was thinking about that too. There's just no way around it, especially Daniel Bryan. You could have got around John Moxley, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
But I think Jericho too, though. It would have been hard. It would have been a gaping hole. If none of his moments got in there, like if they just ignored the highlight reel.
Well, the fact that they did
the best debut of all time.
Yeah, they gave us Jericho's debut, which was huge. I was watching that live.
Big time. Yeah, big time.
We talk about in the chat that, of course, one day will be available on Patreon, that WWE, they're petty is strong. They're petty is strong. And we may talk about something that seemed a little petty, something that you had to really be looking for. But, Daniel Bryan, Yes Movement, Chris Jericho, Y2J, you can't tell WWE story for the rest of its life without those two. So there was no way really around it. There wasn't any CM Punk, I don't think.
Good question. There was no, I think you're right. Actually, now that you think about it. Although there were these moments when they would come back from commercial, and I was pausing it, trying to make note of like the years and stuff. I was like, oh wow, okay. I was trying to pay as much attention to that as I could. But it was still coming back from commercial, so you might have missed something. But yeah, I don't know that there was any CM Punk. Is it okay if we go ahead and just talk about some of the things that were missing? Have you thought about any of the things that were not there? Because I put a lot of thought. That was one, and I hadn't even thought about that. But somebody that I'm afraid is getting erased.
Oh, I know you're going to say it. You're going to say Bret Hart.
Well, no, although that's definitely somebody. Corey Graves mentioned it. After Hulk Hogan came out, Corey Graves mentioned, Bret Hart was leading the new generation, which is definitely true, is definitely true. No, but I was going to say Goldust.
Interesting.
They don't show enough Goldust. That character is so progressive for the time. To me, the beginning of the Attitude Era, before there was any Attitude Era, Goldust was making these mannerisms and showing his Razor Ramon tattoo. So much so Scott Hall didn't even want to work with him.
Yeah, made him uncomfortable, very famously.
And so
and that's a long character too. That's almost 20 years.
Long character with Booker T. He had a tag team. There was that whole stuff with Pillman and Goldust, Vachon. Yeah, for sure. Goldust. So that was one thing. I'm just like I'm kind of waiting
Stardust.
for that.
I meant to say Stardust. Sorry,
with Stardust. Yeah. I'm looking for that. I'm just kind of waiting for those things. I didn't see much China either.
I did see a really good Eddie Guerrero China moment back when he was.
Yep, that's right.
Back when he was courting the hand of Miss China, and that was great moment. God, I fucking miss Eddie Guerrero. That was the beginning of Eddie Guerrero kind of breaking out from like the Radicals, where the wrestling machines were coming here to be serious wrestlers, and obviously
he
it was already
Shakespeare.
He was the best. God, what did he call her? Mamacita or something? God,
Mamacita.
So good. That was the beginning of the Latch Eaton Steel character. Man, Eddie Guerrero, I think maybe we could have used a little bit more of him as well, along with China.
And so I made a note. It was 11 minutes into the show when I actually felt a little bit of disappointment because I was riding high on the nostalgia, man, rolling into this thing, Hulk Hogan, even into the Hulk Hogan thing, which I think you might have been a little disappointed with. What's your feeling? I still get the goosebumps, man. I'm not afraid to admit it. Like, I still love to hear Hulk's music, even though I don't associate him with the beginning of Raw. You know, like I barely even associate him with like my favorite memories of Raw, even though he's got a bunch, you know, over the years, especially like with the beginning. What do you think when it comes crashing down?
I am not a cancel culture guy at all. I think it's ridiculous. It's went too far. But man, I don't know, man. I think Hulk Hogan just needs to go away. He just needs to fucking. Now that being said, I want to full disclosure. I've never been a Hulk Hogan guy. I'm an NWA guy. So when I started watching WWF, which was on Saturday night main events, because we didn't have cable where I grew up, and that's how old I am. I specifically was like, okay, so I've been watching Ric Flair have these fucking 5-star matches for 60 minutes at a time. And I think maybe the first time I ever saw Hulk Hogan wrestle, I think it was like King Kong Bundy or something like that. And I just remember being like, this is not what I'm used to. You know, the first thing that I ever saw on WWF, you know what the first thing I ever saw after, and WWF only for me as a kid existed in the mags, in the after mags. I used to go to Kroger in Marmette, and that's where I would go buy the after mags. And I would know the PWI rankings. The very first fucking thing I ever saw of WWF, which was a Saturday night main event, was fucking Coco Beware. I was like, what the fuck is this bird doing here? Why is there a bird in the wrestling ring? Doesn't this bird know that there's going to be chair shots and figure four leg locks?
All right,
so that's where I am with the WWF
but
history.
That wasn't Monday Night Raw. That wasn't Raw, you know. But, you know, we shouldn't turn it into the Hulk Hogan debate. And I'll just say, you know, in my heart of hearts, I agree. I mean, you know, fans are already sick of him again. Like we've gone from hating him to loving him to hating him to loving him a few times now.
Now he's hanging out with Tom Cruise. I got no time for Hulk Hogan.
Oh man, I know. Like he's just grasping at straws now.
Go battle Thetan somewhere else, Hulk Hogan. Shut the fuck up. Because really, when you think of Raw, like for me, when I think of Hogan, I think of Rockin' Wrestling Connection Hogan, and then like NWO Hogan, and then when he came back to WWE after WCW resolved. He's never been a Raw guy to me. There's so many other people that would have been more of a Raw guy to start it out with. You know what I mean? I mean, come on. How can they not give Stone Cold Steve Austin some money and come and cut a promo, right?
The Mr. America stuff, yeah, really, that would have been much better. That would have been, even that, I guess, would have been cooler.
Yeah.
But I think even the Mr. America stuff happened on SmackDown. A lot of that was with Edge and on SmackDown, I think. I don't know. Anyway, again, I don't know. I wasn't offended by Hulk coming out first. I still mark out a little bit. But again, I don't associate him with Raw, you know, that's, and I thought about like, who else though? You know what I mean? Like who else could have come out at the top of the show? You said Stone Cold. That's a pretty good answer.
Well, you know, if you want to do continuity, you know, Bret Hart could have came out. He was the champ at the time, and that was the next generation.
And I can't help but think like they sought it out because again, and this is one thing I will say, we don't deserve Corey Graves. I think he's an excellent commentator. I think he's the heart and soul of what is good about Raw and commentary right now. Like he's holding that show on his shoulders.
He's not getting much help with the lift either.
One of the first things he said was when Raw debuted, Bret Hart was leading the new generation as the WWF champion. And I really liked the comparison of that as Roman Reigns is entering the picture. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, that's where we were. Clear distinction. Right here's where we are right now. You know, the slow entrance. Bret Hart never took that long to get to the ring.
No, he's got to get the match in. That's
right.
That's a lot of spots that you're not going to have enough room for.
Put the sunglasses on the kid and get in the ring. Ring the bell. You know?
Let me get to that. Let me get to that second rope quickly.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I said earlier, like it was 11 minutes into the same way they go, and we're here for the tribal court. And I go, oh. Like,
really?
It's still 2023. Although it came back. It came back. And of course, it's the best people in the industry. It's Sami Zayn. It's still Roman Reigns, and it's still Paul Heyman in Philadelphia, which is hard to top.
And he did not care to turn heel on those people.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
I wondered if he would or not. I was like, is he going to bury ECW in Philadelphia?
I did too. Well, and here's what I noticed, man. Here's what I noticed is that here's the order the champs went, and this is Philadelphia. This is Philly, man. This is
smart
the home of
mark,
ECW.
capital of the world.
Capital of the world. You know, we'll turn on you in a minute or whatever. The first chant when the music dies down. Sammy, Sammy, Sammy. And then ECW. You know, it came in there, but for a moment it was actually, and then Roman was kind of in there, you know, and he had to get the line out or whatever. But I thought that was interesting. That's how over Sami Zayn is even in Philadelphia. When the ECW crowd, they start with him. They're like acknowledging Sami Zayn first, and then Paul Heyman. And actually Paul Heyman did great.
Because he's the master.
He's the master. This was a master class. It was for sure, you know. And I think like who's going to make a tribal court believable and totally viable? Paul Heyman, the best of the best, and he did even drop a Dangerous Alliance.
You marked so hard. I thought about you when he said that. I was like, Adam Harris is fucking shitting bricks right now, and
as only he can, which has nothing to do with Raw, nothing to do with Philadelphia or even ECW, but it was that whole Law and Order segment that turned into there for a while. And, I underlined it under here, a Dangerous Alliance on my notes.
Dude, it's so well booked. Like we see where Jay and Sammy have problems, and Jay come back around with Sammy. And Jay was able to make a good case for him. We should probably have Stephen P. New come on and give a review of the tribal court if I can get hold of him for tomorrow. I think we may do that. Triple H is so fucking good. You can see the through lines. You can see where we're going. It really does feel like, and I know that if we ever hit and an internet marks are going to fucking destroy me in the comments section for loving WWE so much. And I've bitched about them just as much as anything else that we've talked about on this podcast. But it really does feel like what God Emperor Cornette said that they talked about when they were booking back in the golden age, quote unquote golden age, is where are we going to be in 3 months, right? You know, Jay and Sammy hated each other 3 months ago, and now we've got Jay coming to Sammy's defense. And you're right, this could have been just yet another cringy, stupid Vince McMahon production. And dude, Roman Reigns acted wonderfully. You know, it'd be very easy to make that cartoonish. I believed him. I believe that he felt betrayed by Sammy Uso.
Yeah, no doubt, no question. I think his facials, just the way he was looking at Sami Zayn, you know, and keeping that stone cold look, like that disappointed and mad face. It's part of what makes Roman Reigns great. You know, you can say, and I know Derek Jones likes to say that Paul Heyman gets Roman Reigns over, but I think it's as good as it is because of the small stuff that Roman Reigns adds as the tribal chief, and only he could make it work too, you know, and just his facial expressions were 100% on here. And then when he said solo, and that got a pop from the crowd, like, whoa. All he had to say, you know, there were no directions needed. Slam the microphone down, and the crowd popped, you know. And you know, the crowd was there tonight, but not always. You know, there were a few moments where it felt kind of cold, and we'll get there, you know. But this segment was fire, I thought, to me. You know, you had Jay, as you said, and it proved this storyline was so good that they showed us a bunch of footage from like almost 9 months ago or something, like a timeline that's insane, like you said. And so much of it was good that it was like, oh, you can make a case this way, as internet fans are doing, and you can make a case this way, as internet fans are doing. And they had all the footage to back it up. They had all the, and when they flashed to Sami Zayn's face, like he looked like he was tearing up. You know, like you thought Sami Zayn is on trial here. Like this gentleman
he is going to be sentenced to a Samoan spike.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just thinking, like, and I couldn't help but wonder what Stephen P. New was thinking watching this. I still hope we can get his feedback on this whole segment, you know, his whole prosecution and rebuttal here. But man, this whole thing was so good. And I guess it ended with Jay. He stopped him and turned him around. And Roman said, I don't want to see you after tonight until Saturday. until Saturday at the Royal Rumble, which I thought this was a good build towards the Royal Rumble.
It is. Here's something I was thinking in between that segment and the next. Can Sami Zayn, and this may sound crazy, and you'll probably laugh at me and say, no, there's no way. Can Sami Zayn be the one? Can he be the one to dethrone fucking Roman Reigns? Like, after all of the conjecture that everyone is trying to figure out who's going to be the one to break this monumental championship streak, can it be Sami Zayn?
Well, I don't know. We have to start with, is it Kevin Owens, I think, because that's what they're certainly going through, because he's mentioned specifically the Universal Championship. And that's one of those little minutiae, I think, that we might overanalyze, or we might look into too deeply. But he's mentioned that specifically. And that's what makes me think they may be trying to, as we've said here on the House of Kayfabe, they may be trying to split the belts up here. But I don't know. I still don't know what I think about that. But the mention that Owens had later in the show about that is what makes me think that. I need to go back and look, and I might still try to do it here, but I'm wondering, because they announced that the main event of the match of the Raw 30 is for the U.S. title, which definitely was not around in 1993.
Title.
It was a WCW title, exactly, and I need to look it up. It had to have been like in the era of like a Steve Austin. I'm trying to think of like what would have been going on in that area.
Man, my best guess would be like Ricky the Dragon or Stone Cold.
He definitely had a run at that time. Like there was a time I'm pretty sure Ricky and Steve Austin traded the belts around that time. Dustin Rhodes had a title run in that time period, I think, but it's interesting that that's the main event. And then also they would announce later that the match was going to be no disqualification. And I made the note in my notes. And I had come up with a couple of reasons why that might be. And one of them was, of course, it's Philadelphia. It's ECW.
You got to give it to them.
So they're going to be expecting something like that. But then that would lead to a big comeback that if you're watching this, I think you know what we're talking about. But we'll get there in just a little bit. They flashed and they announced the women's cage match. Becky versus Bayley, which I was super stoked about. I think Bayley's on top of the world.
She's great.
She's so great right now. I will talk about that when we get to that, though. But then they flash to the panel, and it almost looks like backstage WrestleCade.
Holy shit! Graphic. Half the people we see at WrestleCade was playing poker tonight.
Definitely,
a lot of cats getting that nice little payoff.
Absolutely, and God bless them. I say good for them. I would show up.
Absolutely. It's a celebration. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And, how great is it that we do know that legitimately the Godfather runs a strip club in Vegas. And he's like, that's a shoot.
And Ron said, "What's up, pimp?"
I love APA so much. I don't know if I'm buying JBL with Baron Corbin. I think that
they're going to make you buy it.
Fuck it. I love JBL. I love him. I know he's a terrible guy in real life, but I fucking love everything about the APA. I will watch that until the day I'm done. You know what I mean? That's how much I love them.
I popped for the Godfather coming on TV, because we've had him at ASW. It's always cool to see him. And then there's JBL, and then out comes Farouk, out comes Ron Simmons, who has also been at ASW. Really cool to see those guys on the big screen again. And even my wife, again, who's on the couch literally reading a book through this, but even she popped when they go through the door and it's just the frame and then they walk into the poker room.
So great. So there's so much that was wrong about the Attitude Era, and I'm not going to be the Debbie Downer because I think
definitely,
there's some rose-colored glasses when we look back on some of that stuff, but the good stuff was the greatest stuff. And the bad stuff was just as bad as any other era that we've dealt with.
Agreed.
And then sometimes worse, because we did get a throwback shot of Sexual Chocolate with Mae Young in the bed. It's like, Vince McMahon used to own WWE. I forgot Vince McMahon used to own this. That's right.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's Attitude Era.
Yeah.
There were some of those references where it's like, and I was waiting for it, but they did show the blown up limousine.
Of course. I mean, when you die on TV, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Although I don't know if they ever did show. They even had a whole segment of car stuff. But
You
did
know
they show
what they did is
the
they
concrete?
now obviously there's no. I'm pretty sure they did show the concrete.
Okay, they
There's
had
no
to.
way.
I mean, that's one of the most iconic ones of all time.
When you think about it, though, well, there's no way to do Raw and Attitude Era in 30 years without having him on screen. But I don't think we heard Vince talk once. I think Vince was in all the packages that he needed to be, but I don't think we didn't get a "you're fire." You know, we didn't get anything like that.
There were no references to the Vince McMahon Kiss My Ass Club.
No,
Good note. Good
that's
thought.
good.
Good thought. Not much JR either, you know, through that whole period.
Unfortunately, that's what hurt me. It'd have been really great because the King came out wearing the same exact outfit that he wore. It would have been great to have some JR. And if the dirt sheets are to be believed, and you can take that for what you will, that there were talks apparently between WWE and AEW about letting some of their talent appear. And I think
hope
that
so.
if
I would hope they would at least reach out. You know what I mean? Like they have to, even if they know it's not going to get approved. They should reach out.
JR would have been the one that you could see doing it. You know, he's not going to let Daniel Bryan or any of those kind of people come back. Or
and honestly, they probably don't want to, and they don't need to.
No, but JR would have been the one. That would have hit me right where it needed to happen.
Even Philly would have popped for that, I think. Even Philly would have had that in the feels. Well, we've been going a few minutes here, and we haven't even gotten to the first match, which was the Usos, who were conveniently in the ring following court. They had a court appointment. And then it just followed up with their tag team title defense, which was convenient. It's good that they worked that into their schedule.
Yeah.
Right after the commercial breaks, it ended conveniently there, so they took on the Judgment Day, and which started as, and when they first started for this contention, it was Finn Balor and Damian Priest. But as we know, they switched Dominic in when Finn Balor got hurt in the middle of that match, and I really thought that was a weird way of bringing in Dominic, and I guess this is what it all led to, a little more of the Triple H.
Long-term storytelling.
He knows more than you know, you silly Mark. Just sit back and wait and see how it plays out. And, of course, in this match, as soon as you hear them going, "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" And it's kind of a work at that point. But they throw up the X, and they're able to, long story short, throw Sami Zayn into the match. And I kind of thought, I was like, oh gosh, is this going to go another 15 minutes? Like, oh, maybe they're just going to start like another tag match, out of the new. It didn't go quite that long though. It didn't extend that long, but then it ended up with Dominic taking the L, which
taking the 3D in Philadelphia, by the way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, let's not gloss over
Beautiful,
that. They did what was right for business.
Yeah. Man, it's just Triple H is so fucking good at this. You're right. It was kind of out of nowhere. Why is Finn Balor being replaced or whatever? And he knew where he was going, and it made logical sense. It's so good. I love Triple H so much more as a booker as I really did as a wrestler. I thought he was great, but he wasn't one of my favorites. You know what I mean? I know that everybody else in the residency of House Kayfabe are huge Triple H fans, and I was like, it's Triple H. He's game. He's got a fucking sledgehammer that he doesn't murder anybody with. But his booking is so good. It's so great.
He's doing great right now. And
that's such a small detail. I love that you brought that up. Just those little things make it more real, and we can lose ourselves.
Yeah, and actually, to me, also kind of accentuates the tag team wrestling. I think it's making more sense out of that. It's focusing on that, and I wouldn't have thought that was going to be played out in the main storyline. It's like, well, I guess it was because it's the tag team titles, but. They used that to put Sami Zayn, the man, into the tag team division, and now he's holding the belts. But he's in total dissension with the tribal chief. So
that's not a good place to be. You don't want to be in the tribal chief's ire, man. That's a bad place to be.
So after the whole gambling thing, which we already talked about, another thing I wrote down was we didn't see a whole lot of Trish Stratus, or at least not early Attitude Era Trish Stratus.
Dude, great point. We did not see a lot of what some people could call the problematic material from the early days of Raw, and especially in the smack dab in the middle of the Attitude Era.
Attitude Era.
Boy, it was cleansed. Wouldn't you say, Adam? We didn't.
Yeah. Even the DX stuff that they showed was
Very
completely
clean.
tame.
Very tame.
Not a lot of hornswoggle either. Like I felt like there would have been more of those kind of things. And Zack
It's
Ryder.
hard. It's hard. It's 30 years.
That's
we could
true.
probably
And
sit
all
here
the
for a long time.
celebrities,
Yeah.
you could talk about the celebrities they left out, this sort of things. Like it's really hard.
I forgot
to
how
boil it down.
hard Wolverine punched Dolph Ziggler. You would think an actor could work a punch. He just straight knocked him out.
Well, and I bet he was told to do that. I mean, like, don't hold out, dude, or else it'll look totally fake. And that's why Vince McMahon Sr. didn't want Andy Kaufman coming into WWE. He's like, if the actors start doing it, they'll think actors can just do it. They'll think we're the actors, and
Wow. Hey, McMahon trying to protect the business.
Yeah, right. Senior. And I was going to say something else about. Oh yeah, there was that. So there was a short clip of that punch, which in the background you could see Zack Ryder, who was in that gimmick, and Wolverine is wearing the the woo 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 headband in that.
That's right.
So that was Zack Ryder's only moment that I saw.
Heath made an appearance,
and then Heath was in one, from 2010, just barely, and kind of covered by Ryback's hand. Like he was on the other side of the ring, and Ryback's hand was in front of Heath's face. But there he was. That was his moment in Raw history. Not 3-man band, not all that legiondary thing where he was losing.
No Jinder Mahal. There was no Jinder Mahal during any of that. I don't think
Jinder Mahal.
I think that his championship run, that guy came in and forcefully got himself over. I think that he's unfortunately been relegated.
Yeah.
Jinder Mahal, dude, that guy went away, came back, shredded. Doing great work, and
they put him on top.
He made them put him on top. I think that would be another glaring omission from this.
So this next segment turned into a lot, actually. I didn't think it was going to be much more than a promo for the Royal Rumble match, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are going into the Royal Rumble match after this. But LA Knight comes out, can get great heat. He's wonderful on the mic, as we know. A great promo. And he throws out a challenge to all the legends in the locker room. And I, in my head, I'm immediately started like, who is this going to be? And one of the people I thought that could have been a first person out at the top of the show that could have made a big impact would have been The Undertaker. And so the lights go dark, which makes sense because it's the lights out match, right? It could be Bray Wyatt or it's whatever. It's the pitch black match, copyright Mountain Dew. And so bong and the music hits and it's Undertaker. But then I did not see this coming, but it makes a lot of sense looking back on it. The Undertaker as the American Badass. We get a little Kid Rock action on Monday Night Raw for the first time in a while. Wouldn't have put it on my bingo card, but for those of you who did, congratulations. What did you think when the motorcycle came out?
Well, I wanted to ask you because I know how the American Badass version of the Undertaker's pretty divisive. He was this sort of supernatural dude that killed people but died but didn't, and had a magic urn. And then they had to kind of ground the character, and it did need to get freshened up a little bit. And I fucking hate Kid Rock, but I enjoyed the American Badass version of the Undertaker. What do you think?
Good. Yeah, good. I totally did too. I thought it was great. It was a way of keeping it relevant for the times. Like, the Undertaker thing worked way better than it should have, and only could work by Mark Calloway doing it. And I think the same with somebody saying, I was the supernatural character, but now I'm a biker who will beat you up outside the club afterwards and then roll off with
your girlfriend.
With the apocalypse. Yeah, exactly. And your girlfriend. Yeah, exactly. So, so I dug the American Badass. Looking back, and Kid Rock was huge at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no denying that, good or bad. It was just like he was a huge celebrity and a huge rub to have his music be. We think about the CM Punk music and how important that is nowadays. There weren't many licensed songs, man, back then, especially from a huge star either. And so Kid Rock, that Undertaker entrance is still iconic. And again, only the Undertaker could have taken that.
He's the magic man. He was able to get some of the silliest. If you just said it to someone who's never watched wrestling, they'd be like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Where's the light from the urn even coming from?
Yeah, right. He ascended into the sky.
Is he an X-Men? He controls electricity. Like he does lightning bolt strikes. You know what I mean? And
he doesn't feel pain, but also uses a steel chair now and then. Is apparently friends with Ric Flair.
Well, you know what I was worried about, and I fucking love Eli Drake, and I know it's LA Knight, and I'm getting used to it. I love him. I think he's one of the best talkers in the world. Let's be honest.
Tremendous.
He's kind of a half oldies act. You know what I mean? He's got a little he's got a lot of Stone Cold in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he does it well. It's believable. He looks like an athlete. He is a little older, but it doesn't come across that way. And I was so afraid that this was going to be like a Vince McMahon era, throwback show and bury this motherfucker, right? Oh, LA Knight's going to come out and and he kind of did, but it did work for the story of his match. It was done as well as it could have been done. I was very, very frightened that here comes JBL to rip his fucking head off with a clothesline from hell, and he's going to spit on him and tell him to get out of the ring. Now, here's what I've wanted to get to on this part of the program. Adam's one of my oldest friends. I know him so well. Adam, tell me about Bray Wyatt right now. Where are you feeling? How you feeling about Bray Wyatt? He brought the fun back. He brought the fun house back.
I can't offer any good alternatives. Okay, so I can't really say what they should be doing. But I was so disappointed with the fun house, even though it had elements, and at the end there was the howdy stuff, and so it's like they're working it in there. And again, this could be some really good long-term storytelling by Triple H, and I'm a fan of Bray Wyatt's ability to translate things other than I think he's just saying words and not any feelings or interpretations or actual meaning. This whole gimmick with LA Knight, I feel like LA Knight's, again, he's just one of the best workers in the business. He's making it half as good as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan. I really want to like Bray Wyatt, and I don't want the demon necessarily. I'm not looking for the mask and the burnt marshmallow costume again. I don't need that either. And I don't think it's weird because other than the Sister Abigail, what's his other moves? What are we looking for in a match from him? And it's like we haven't seen him in so long.
He turned John Cena into a guy from the NWO once.
So definitely. Well, and here's the thing: is I wrote down, and I don't know about Bray Wyatt. We have to see. As always, we just have to wait and see. I'm anxious to see.
That is what we call an Adam burial, you all. That is as nice as it gets. That is as nice as that is as rough.
I forgot you were looking for me to bury Bray Wyatt. Yeah, it just doesn't go anywhere for me. It just doesn't.
I think he's a good performer. I think that he would be fucking absolutely great in movies. I think he's probably done a movie or two. They're wanting another Undertaker. Right, they want another spooky woo character that you can do some.
I think he's already there, actually.
Yeah, well, right now, today they just told you, it's here it is. It's almost like he was passing it off to him.
Okay, yeah, I think that's where we're going. If we're not there, see, that was all about Mania to me.
Go on.
I think that was all about Mania.
You think Undertaker's coming back?
First of all, I do. I think it makes a lot of sense, actually. So first of all, I wanted to, because I did make a note that all the fans in the arena held their breath while the Undertaker parked that Harley Davidson motorcycle and made sure he got off of it okay. And then as soon as he was off of it, woo! Everybody went crazy again. Because we were all kind of like, oh, don't fall over. Like, ooh, don't. Those things are heavy. Not to be messed with. A freaking motorcycle like that.
Hey,
and this is live television. This is live, pal.
Man, speaking of live, and we didn't talk about it, just real quick and get back to it. Man, they didn't even give Hulk Hogan a mic that worked. Talking about live wrestling.
I know. I wrote down we're live, pal. I bet Hulkster was wishing we could do that again, but he actually held it together. He kept going.
He's a master on the mic.
Not a great way to start the show, but yeah, he could have got thrown off though. Remember when he said Superdome instead of
it was Astrodome.
Astrodome, he said Astrodome instead of Superdome.
Right. But LA Knight, of course, gets fed. Now I like that he got fed to Bray Wyatt, and he
Right.
didn't have to get.
We thought he was going to get the choke
slammed.
slam. Yeah. And then, but I still wrote down. So we had the Taker face to face with Bray moment, which I loved. But then I also wrote burial for LA Knight because again, he just got put down by the guy he's supposed to be fighting on Instagram. But then I also wrote mania because whatever that whisper was, we all remember, man. Taker beat Bray, I think, after the streak, right? Like he had already lost the streak, came back and won again, and then lost to Roman, right? So he's got those 2 losses. I think you could easily book a cinematic match between Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker, extend The Undertaker's record, like extend the length of it, but he still puts Bray over in the cinematic match to give him his win back. And that puts Bray Wyatt on another level.
I could go the rest of my life without ever seeing another
cinematic match. I cannot believe I just said that. Especially when that first one happened at Mania. During the
him and AJ, it was AJ
like,
Styles and the Good Brothers beating the shit out of Undertaker.
Like, oh man, I don't like this stuff.
I don't like it at all.
It aged okay with me. Because I realized you have to do that. And actually, a real Undertaker match would probably be worse. And that's why I think you could do it. That's why I think you could do it. It's not a match.
You could hide him.
Ding. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not that. It can't be that.
Because if you watched his Rogan and man, shout out Joe Rogan podcast gets a shout out today on WWE. Well, he went through the laundry list of fucking injuries that he had, and Joe Rogan couldn't believe it. He's like, "How are you alive?" And Undertaker's like, dude, that's pro wrestling, bro. We all have this laundry list.
Undertaker got lit on fire walking to the ring. You know what I mean? Like nobody.
He wrestled for a while with a broken freaking neck. He like at the time they were not up on the health of their performers. Let's be honest. Right. That's something else we didn't see in any of the throwback stuff. That we didn't see any chair shots, we didn't see any head shots, we didn't see any things that we now know are long-term damaging to the performers, and
not even the Owen Hart Insiguri to HBK. Remember that when they were like when it was silent and that was a huge Raw moment. Huge Raw moment. I was scared to death.
Yep.
The commentators weren't saying anything.
Yeah. Like I think that you all think that this is real. But the Undertaker wrestled for months with a broken neck. And the doctor was like, what the and like the doctor realized what it was he did for a living. He was like, you should be paralyzed. There is no, maybe he's working. Maybe that's a work. But he's on a real life podcast as Mark Calloway.
It could not be that much of a stretch even.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he wouldn't have to stretch it very far to make it. You know what I mean? No. Over the course of time. Well, I thought this segment got a lot done. Actually, I'm interested to see what they can do with LA Knight, though. I mean, it's what does he do next? If this is just he just jobs to Bray Wyatt, I don't know.
That'll break my heart.
Yeah, well, I mean, what else can you do though? You can't have him go over unless it has to do with the Undertaker.
Man, I tell you what, Triple H just might be the master. He might be able to
You're right.
beat him, but still make him look strong. You know that thing that they used to do? Remember, like all of our loves of our wrestling lives all have lost, but but back, they still looked good. I seen Kurt Angle, who's one of my all-time favorite, lose to fucking everybody, but they still was able to make him strong.
He lost something tonight, I think, unfortunately, man, but we'll get to that. We're going to get to that. I think that Triple H has a lot of faith in LA Knight. I actually think no matter what, LA Knight is one promo away from being as over as he was before a loss. I don't think any loss will ever affect him from not being able to get himself over. Speaking of getting themselves over, and I do think she's one of the best stars of the last 10 to 15 years, is Bayley.
Let's hug it out, Adam. Let's hug it out. She's great.
She is a national treasure.
She is
in the industry of professional wrestling. She should be protected at all costs, as my friend Matt Sutton likes to say.
Dude, when I first witnessed her in NXT, when NXT was really good and everyone was singing,
did you roll your eyes?
No, I bought it.
You bought it? Okay, all right.
I was about, and you know what? I had just kind of become a father at the time to daughters, and dude, I bought that shit. Hook, line, and sinker. Because okay, that's a good point. You said that. If anyone else had that character, I would have been like, fuck this. this whole thing, the whole visual of it. But she's so fucking great. And I'd never thought when she came up, I was like, well, okay, we've got our white meat, Ricky Morton forever. Mm-hmm. She's never going to be a heel. How do you make a Hug Bailey up? She's the
floating tube men.
Yeah, like it was all just so, obviously geared to girls and kids in general. And she was such a, she was this white meat smiling baby face
to sell teddy bears, in the catalog.
Of course. Absolutely. Who would have thought that she'd be such a good heel? Man, how?
And I'm thankful because it's a lack of them, or at least those who have been given the chance to be over as heels. And thank God for Bailey. I just believe that. And speaking of great heel work, and I just want to point this out, they were lowering the cage down, and she's doing her entrance, but yet they're still lowering the cage down. She's like, starts clapping. Hey, what's wrong with you? Get this cage together. Like she's giving them a hard time. Turns around, jaw jacks to the fans at ringside, which is another thing I think Triple H has been like, get over with the crowd.
Well, we know for a fact that was one of Vince's rules was do not play to the crowd, play to the camera.
And Bailey is the best at playing at the crowd.
Oh, she's so good.
And so once the cage goes down, she gets in, and then they go to picture in picture, which is a topic of dissent with me. But we'll get to it during the Imperium thing on that in front. But I paid attention during this picture in picture because Bailey goes to all the corners and is picking her head out through the cage and jaw-jacking with the audience the entire time. They're in commercial break, and she is jaw-jacking with every corner of the ring, getting herself over, getting as much heat as possible.
She's a heat magnet. God, she's good. Magnet. She's a genius.
So wonderful. So wonderful. I was, and it was just after the top of the hour, which means, again, they have faith in her. Like, this is a big match. Unfortunately, it didn't turn into a big match. I think I had high expectations for this. Maybe it was going to be a 25, 30-minute, classic Boss Man versus Hogan.
The wife is going to have another run in because I thought it was a pretty innovative way to do it. To not have the match. I'm sure it's happened. And if Derek was here, he could probably tell us the dates that it did. But I've never seen a no start, no contest steel cage match where the two heavies, and I use heavies, in quotations, comes out and they just beat the fuck out of the baby face. And then we don't have the match. And I said to the wife,
it's like Memphis or something.
Well, while she was watching Raw, I said, that
book
is
club, the Raw book club. That's what we should call it.
All over a while. I was like, what did you read while your nerd Mark husband was watching wrestling? And I said, that is an innovative way to do a steel cage match. And she just goes, by not having a steel cage match.
Exactly.
Like, but again,
precisely.
But again, now we have even more of a ramp up. We're going to have to do something like these. It's something that AEW is wrong. And I did not want to even fucking mention them, but hey, you said something bad to me at catering and now we're going to have a fucking razor blade match. Like,
I challenge you
to
an explosion match.
An explosion match. Winner or loser gets ran over by a dump truck. But now we're going to have another step. And it's going to go to WrestleMania. And man, if they do this right, I fully trust Triple to as what's his name? Ron Killings as R-Truth. That's the best time that anyone's ever said anything to Triple H. R-Truth goes, listen here. But I have all the faith in her to get us to a big moment WrestleMania match between two that we already know can give us the classic that you want, right? They teased you with it. Like you said, Adam was ready because Adam, of course, is the biggest female wrestling mark in the house. You were ready for a 25-minute 5-star, and it's not yet, homie. You're just going to have to wait. And now you're interested.
It would have made sense for the women's evolution. You know what I mean? Like, remember when Lita and Trish main evented Raw for the first time? I figured that we were going to hear that story tonight.
Now we're telling a bigger story, homie.
Well, no, and I'm glad. I am glad. In the long term, yes, we gave up the match here in Philadelphia tonight. And it is, again, it's Philadelphia, so you're advertising a cage match,
Just a little bit. Because that's the thing, though. We like to be surprised. Wrestling right now is they're not just giving it to you exactly like earlier. We thought LA Knight was just going to get killed by some old man and never to be heard from again, a la oh shit, what was that Road Warrior ripoff crew there that they had the pads and the
Like
makeup?
draws?
No, like a couple years ago. Oh, come on. They were Evolution.
Yeah, I do know who you're talking about. Yeah, oh shit.
They've disappeared off the map. That's how much
they're on Impact actually. The one of them is like Big Vic or something. And
anyway, do you not remember the APA coming out and completely ending their WWE career? Right, that was the end when they were in NXT Ascension. When the Ascension was
yes, thank you. Good
Ascension
job.
was pretty good in NXT, and they came up to the roster, didn't hit, and they just like, well, we're going to feed you to 2 retirees and destroy your career on TV. And they didn't do it to LA Knight, and they didn't give you what you thought you were going to get today with that steel cage match. I think we're not done. I think it's going to be a WrestleMania, and God, who knows what they're going to do in WrestleMania if it's those two. And we know that Bayley, who's one of the best, and Big Becky, Big Time Bex is kind of gone. The man is one of the best. If anybody can do it, it's them.
Well, and it also did make the beating make sense because she did take a chain to the ribs. You know what I mean? Like Dakota Kai had the chain to the ribs. And so in that manner, it's like and you're right. I did roll my eyes thinking like, oh, they're going to do the whole thing with, are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? Oh, I can go, which has been overdone. Ugh. So in that regard, I'm glad they didn't do it. In that regard, I'm glad. And you're right. And it sells the injury. It makes sense. Like, actually, they did beat the fuck out of her, and she can't wrestle right now.
Yeah, and Becky now has a big bone to pick, even more so than going in. She had a big bone to pick so much that they need to put it into a steel cage, and that didn't work out. So we're going to have a really big bone to pick later on. It's great. Yeah. Man, Triple H. Fucking good on you, man.
So, okay, that was good. And then they went directly next to the DX entrance, and like how long did it take you to notice that something was missing? One of these things didn't belong when DX came out.
When they gave you the big wide shot and you could see whoever went in, and then you saw that red T-shirt, and I thought, holy shit, that's who they were talking to AEW about. That would have been another person that they would have asked. He's not really a wrestler on AEW. That could have worked.
It could have worked.
But then
they already turned it down once, didn't they?
Yeah, Kurt Angle just lives like 2 hours away. He's in Pittsburgh, so they're like, call Kurt Angle. And it was a little forced. True. I am a huge Kurt Angle fan. He's on my Mount Rushmore. I think he's one of the fucking greatest of all time. Everything about him is wonderful. First of all, the segment, great. Like, those guys still have it. Those guys.
I don't hate it. Yeah, I don't hate it.
Man, when they were chesting up to Gunther, and they all, and Triple H comes up, and you see Triple H, like, here's the game, and he's like,
classic.
I'm fucking retired, dude. I had a fucking heart attack and almost died. Yeah. You do it. And just it was the three Stooges silliness of these old men, trying to puff up to the young upstarts. Great. It's great.
That's DX now. It's almost like retirement home DX. Like, oh yeah, we used to be something, but we realized DX. We're not actually something.
So yeah, I thought this was great. I want to hear all those. I want to hear Road Dogg do his thing. Triple H.
They actually didn't even do him. He barely got that out because he was like the Road Dogg Jesse James and Kurt Angle, and that's when they, and that's when they did that, and then they didn't say suck it. And I thought for sure, well, no,
at the very
they didn't
end.
The first time. He was like, we've got 2 words for you. And that's when Imperium hit. And I thought, oh, brilliant.
Mm-hmm,
like,
no, that is brilliant for that.
They said everything but suck it, and that's as good, I mean, it was like we knew, you almost got it and everything. But then way later, as they were finally, after the match had been booked and everything, Shawn Michaels got it in.
Yeah. Oh, man, did you pop for Teddy Long? How much did we hate Teddy Long coming out to make a random 6-man tag player at the beginning of the SmackDown? Yep, and dude, I loved it. I was like, dude, bring him. This is awesome. I thought it was great.
Me too. I think guys like him should be preserved and treasured as long as they're around. Like a Dusty Rhodes. You know what I mean? Like, did we make as much out of him as we could? Put him on TV anytime you can. Mm-hmm. Teddy Long was a referee in the NWA. By God.
Yeah, I've been watching Teddy Long for a long time.
Put him on television anytime.
I remember Jerry Curl Teddy Long, like back in the day, and this was perfect. It's just so booked so good. Who would be the faction backstage that would not like all of this foolishness and balderall.
Hit
It
the
would be
music.
fucking Imperium, the people who talk about this as a fucking sport, as serious men.
He
And it's
called
just-
it filth and nonsense.
It is filth and nonsense. And he's right. A lot of that shit during the Attitude Era was filth and nonsense. You know,
Nobody
again,
talks about the great work rate
rose-colored
of the
No,
Attitude Era.
No,
you know?
there's no 5-star matches back then.
No, and they were
Never.
they were happening with the cruiserweights on WCW,
Yeah, no shit.
Um,
God, no doubt, man. That was groundbreaking.
which
But-
is another thing I think we'll get to because I want to talk about the comparison of Raw to Nitro, which was a big era of Raw.
Mhm.
And this episode's already gone way too long. I appreciate everybody watching the House of Kayfabe with me and the other Steve Barker, reviewing Raw 30 tonight. So like and subscribe here on the YouTube channel. This eventually led to a match as Teddy Long played it out. It was fine. It was a good match. You know, I think it's more of just a pass the torch type thing, right?
Yeah.
When DX said who could come out and fight, it's Seth Rollins and it's the Street Profits, you know, and it is. And I hope, you know, like, look, we don't need to see DX forever.
No.
We can keep bringing them out like Teddy Long, you know, do it every once in a while.
The Paquita.
Pop a rating every once in a while, but we also have to make some more stars, you know.
Yeah.
And I think this did a good job of making Imperium, even though they didn't come out on top. It made them serious. Seth Rollins deserves the torch, I think.
Yep.
I wish Angle had better comedic timing.
Well, I wish Kurt Angle had just better body movement. It really bummed me out when I watched him move around.
Yeah,
It sucks, man. You know, he's had a neck fusion and he's had another
Yeah,
laundry list
yes.
of surgeries.
Well, thanks for making me
and-
feel bad already. You know,
No,
for
no,
what I
no,
said,
no,
but-
no. Anybody can have comedic timing. You don't need body work for that.
No,
You're
that's right.
about
Yeah,
that.
I know.
You know what I
man,
mean?
for
Like,
sure.
because
It's like-
dude, DX has the same fucking laundry list of surgeries and injuries,
yeah,
and they were
that's
funny
true.
too. I mean, we
Yeah.
all saw it was probably on Raw right when Triple H's quadricep fell off of his leg, and he finished the match.
I think
Kurt
that was
Angle,
a Raw moment. That was either Raw or SmackDown. I don't remember.
yeah, but Kurt Angle, you know, it's his home state. He literally lives like 2 hours away, however far Pittsburgh is from Philadelphia. He was going to get some of the hometown love. It's Kurt Angle. He's a fucking American hero. Let's see him some. Just watching him move is not great. The one moment for me was when there was just a lot of nonsense, all going on in the ring, and Gunther comes in and ends it.
It was the double ankle lock.
Yeah,
The
smokes everybody.
Street Profits were doing double ankle lock
Let's
in honor
stop
of
this
Kurt Angle.
bullshit now.
Yep.
And he starts giving Kurt Angle the business. And of course he would.
And that
You
face
know?
to face, and I made a note, man. When those two bellied up, even though I know it ain't happening, I was like, oh, think about it though. You know,
I would like to see an Olympic slam right now.
You know what? That might have. I just thought of this, but that might have sold some 2K23 games right there. You know, like if you can play Gunther versus Kurt Angle in fantasy
I'd
mode,
play that match.
that-
I'd
yeah,
play that
load me
match.
I would play that. Yeah, and the other thing, and I said something earlier about picture in picture because, and Corny has mentioned this too, and it happens on AEW and on Raw. The heels get their heat during picture in picture.
Yeah, don't work
It's
for
like-
me.
Down in the corner is Gunther. They did this huge triple team move, which I love tandem offense. You know what I mean? Like that's the old school fan of me going, yeah, y'all work together on some stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
You all train together, so you have moves together.
yeah, you guys have like thought about things that you could do to one person with all three of you, right? You know, like you guys thought, let's do some moves together, and it all went down during picture in picture, and it's a travesty of heel. It's I guess it's what heels have to deal with in the business right now.
I don't like it. I don't like it because when you come back, because let's be honest, man, it just doesn't hit the same. I just saw you on a 70-inch television, and then I'm going to see you in like a 15-inch little
No,
window
it's hard. It's
during a
hard to pay
Taco
attention.
Bell, during a shitty Taco Bell commercial. It's
Commercials are
terrible.
meant to get your attention. Like it's not
Yeah.
even meant to work this way.
Yeah, it's not good.
no,
But
it's
of
not
course,
good.
Gunther, doesn't take the pin. They lose. Everyone looks good. Street
Everybody
Profits.
looks
I
good.
think Street Profits are still on the way up. I think a lot of people were trying
Clearly.
to break them up way too early. I think they need to have a substantial run before they do the Marty Jannetty thing. Seth Rollins, candidate for Wrestler of the Year. Everything he does is gold. He doesn't do anything wrong. Gunther is my top 3 wrestlers in the world right now.
No question. Yeah,
It's all
no
great.
question.
It's another great thing. They did.
They
another
excelled
great thing.
tonight. They excelled tonight, and they could have, come down looking goofy, but they didn't. They
Mhm.
came out looking strong for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right about that. Let's see. So they ran through a few more clips. I noted a couple years here. 2007 was the Vince limo when it exploded, and Donald Trump called to make sure he was okay. Look it up. Look it up. 2010 was the Nexus and Heath when the Nexus invaded and took on John Cena. And 2006 was Triple H and HBK dressed as Vince and Shane.
Wow.
What were we saying about being petty?
They are petty. That's
of
another.
all the photos of DX, they didn't show the invasion on the Norfolk scope or whatever. Nope. They didn't show,
I forgot. That reminds me. That reminds me of a good line that Triple H had. It was, really like a behind the curtain moment. He was like, "Do you all think booking's easy?
Yes,
it's hard to do this. It's hard to make this shit work right. You think I'm just going to come out here and throw some shit together? If you really want to think meta, maybe that was like him saying, like, you remember like how Vince would come like 5 minutes before the show and just tear up the script, do all this other bullshit, and then nothing was planned out and seeing where we were going to go in steps forward. That was a great line. Triple H is great. Everything's great.
Yeah, Angle should have said, we already moved on, but there was when they said Kurt can do it, and they bellied him up, and they should have gave it a minute to like give the crowd to say, yeah, he should, yeah. But instead, Kurt said, oh, I'm not doing it, like too quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
They should have let the audience get back. Actually, well, maybe, like they're not thinking about spinal fusion. They're thinking about Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist.
So what are we up to now?
At 10:05 p.m., another top of the hour thing. They bring out the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Fine, I guess. But
it's fine, I guess.
That suit. Eesh.
If he wasn't
among all the things, that suit.
If he wasn't just constantly embarrassing himself on social media on a daily basis, I would genuinely be happy to see him. He's probably my favorite wrestler of all time. If I'm going to sit down and I don't have a preference for a match to watch, I just go watch a Ric Flair match. It's what I do. It's me.
It'll be good,
I don't care.
He didn't really say much, really. Like he just. And what I wrote down, another thing that was absent was Evolution. We didn't see Batista. We saw Batista, but we didn't see Batista, Orton. We didn't see that whole faction. I don't think. Maybe we did, but again, I thought like that's a huge segment of Raw that they didn't really do. It would have been cool to have them come out, and still let Nate bring out Charlotte. You could have done that. This highlighted Charlotte in a cool way.
Okay, now you're as big as Charlotte Mark, if not bigger than me.
Yeah, absolutely. I popped.
How are you liking like
Babyface? It's not my favorite.
It's not my favorite. I mean, I know she's going to give me great matches.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not worried about
it feels
that
like it's a
in
push,
one
though. It feels like a stretch.
It is.
I love her as such an amazing heel that it's really hard for me when she has to. And I guess it's inevitable. I guess. And she is over.
Yeah. Because she's the greatest of all time.
That's right. I wish there was a way to make her like an over heel somehow, and I don't.
That'll be no problem. She'll do that.
She'll get there. Yeah, she'll get there. She'll get there. And then they just kind of transitioned this to Bianca Belair, and then that transitioned into the match. There was some stuff with Alexa Bliss on there. They're moving some stuff forward there. They've got a pay-per-view to build to, so it can't all be nostalgia like me.
Right.
That Evolution thing probably would have took 15 minutes to even come out, so that idea would have got shot down anyway.
Why isn't Sonya Deville a star?
I think she's great. I mean, I know probably the crowd in Philly was like, "Oh, really? This?"
She looks like a star. She's a good wrestler. She's good.
Absolutely.
She's fine.
And
she's not Charlotte. She's not Bailey.
Believable on the mic. Well, and they trust her because they put her in the ring with those people, though. They put her in there with Charlotte and Belair and say, "Okay, you guys are going to have a match tonight." Kind of no build feud. They may have been having matches on the holiday tour. Sonya Deville was here in West Virginia on the holiday tour.
Okay.
Which
she's just not hitting.
No. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think
she's got to look, man. Building. She looks cool.
Yeah, I agree.
She looks like the Matrix.
I agree. Cool. And I think, they keep putting her on TV for a reason. She's reliable. I wrote down a few more of my memories. I remember an early memory of Ric Flair, speaking of, and it didn't get mentioned at all, but he was only there for a minute of Raw. Okay, so he was not on WrestleMania 7. 8 is the one where he fought Savage after winning the Royal Rumble. And then by 93, which was WrestleMania 9, Flair was not on the card. Okay, so remember, Brett loses to Yoko, Yoko loses to Hogan at that 9. So between then, which would have been April of 93 and January of 93 when Raw starts, they had a match between Mr. Perfect and Ric Flair, and it was
loser. That's
leaves
a
town.
great
And
match.
that's how they got rid of Ric Flair on WWE. It made so much sense. You know, Flair lost. You know, he finally talked too much, and Mr. Perfect got him. You know,
and who better to have that match with? It's so good. If you're a newer mark, man, go watch that.
And I wasn't thinking about ratings as a kid, of course. You know, again, I'm 11 years old here, so I mean, I'm a ultra mark at this point. But it's like I wasn't as a kid. I wasn't thinking about what that match was ratings. Like I think it went 30 or 60 minutes. Like I don't remember even if it had a time limit, but it was like it kept going and going and false finish and false finish, and you thought it could end at any time. And that's one of the biggest Raw memories that stands out to me of all time was that match that he had with Mr. Perfect, man. It was a great send off, and unfortunately, Perfect's career in WWE didn't last much longer after that either.
No, he got a little trouble.
Trouble
there.
Yeah, it wouldn't go very good. He would never have much more on top after that. They had a Cody promo, which was good. He still didn't come out. This show, I think, overall was low on Cena.
Very low on Cena. I think, if we're almost to the last match, I think Cena, I know everyone keeps talking about The Rock coming and staring at the lights for his cousin Roman at WrestleMania. We're hearing from the dirts, and take them for what you will, that is out. I think that might be a swerve because too many people are on it. I think that Triple H, it works like that.
Yeah.
I do know that Stone Cold Steve Austin now is being floated for WrestleMania with Roman Reigns, which I'm not really high on, especially after watching him work with Kevin Owens. To be honest, he's an old man. He can't move, man. His knees are bad. I'm sorry. I love you, Steve Stone Cold, but just stay at the ranch. I think John Cena needs to come and put Austin Theory over. Let's be honest. Austin Theory is John Cena 2023, and John Cena, him coming back to WrestleMania and putting Austin Theory over is exactly what needs to happen.
Can't argue. Although they might still put Cena over.
Yeah, no shit. That's true. So, what did you think about this match? The problem with this match, and it's something we haven't talked about, was, man, 3 hours is a long fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
Are
we still talking about the women's match, you mean?
No, we're on to the
main event.
Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
Like, even Philadelphia, the markiest of mark worlds, were fucking tired, and you could hear it. And Bobby Lashley rules, and he's over. And Austin Theory, I love how they've beaten Austin Theory into powder, and then they made him build him back up.
Definitely. The crowd was cold for the women's match also. I noted that too. It was like none of those promos were getting over. The women's match, it seemed like they were cold to that. The Charlotte had some heat, but the crowd was definitely tired. You're right. We kind of skipped over one thing I want to mention, which is the Miz TV. Miz comes out and says, "Why isn't there Miz TV?" Kevin Owen comes out of the crowd, fucking gives him a couple stunners, which this crowd needed. That was a nice little pop for the stunners. And he mentioned the Universal title, which we talked about a second ago. He mentioned that specifically. Yeah. And I hope we don't go too far down this road, but I do want to mention, because KO came out and he's in the main event picture right now, and so is Sami Zayn. He's been in the main event storyline, and both those guys gave props to Jay and Mark Briscoe, the Briscoe brothers, who have been on the lips of everybody in the wrestling community, and the thoughts and the prayers and the minds of all of us. The most tragic story of all time, I think, in professional wrestling of Jay Briscoe. And there you have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who was El Generico, and Kevin Owen was Kevin Steen in Ring of Honor, and some of their earliest big matches, and both of them have said it, were with the Briscoes, and the Briscoes got them over. And here they are in the main event of the biggest promotion in the world. And so that's how big the influence and the reach of the Briscoe brothers is, man. So you can't overstate it.
I've been just thinking about them so much lately. I think that the Briscoes are going to end up being like, and I know this is going to sound like a hipster musician thing to say.
Are you going to say Jeff Buckley?
Maybe. I was actually going a little even more hipster than that. I was going to say they're going to be like the Neutral Milk Hotel. They're going to be like that.
That's probably more accurate.
These guys, because man, you have to be a big wrestling fan to know who the Briscoes are. Yes, we saw them a lot on Sinclair Broadcasting towards the, halfway through 2/3 of the way that Ring of Honor lived. And you did get to see them a lot if you had an antenna hooked up to your television, right?
Which is important to a lot of fans.
Yeah, I'm big. They're just so great. Jay Briscoe, I actually want to read something, and I know that this is taking a turn, but we didn't get to do a video on him just because of the way that our schedules worked, and we weren't able to honor him. But I want to read something about Jay Briscoe that I actually wrote on our Facebook page, and please go find us on the Residents of the House Kayfabe on Facebook, and his importance cannot really be understated for me. And I know if Derek was here, he would echo that sentiment. But here's what I wrote about Jay Briscoe, just real quick. And I know this is raw review, but this is what I wrote. Do you know who Jay Briscoe was? He was the motherfucker you'd show someone when they made fun of wrestling. You'd say, shut your mouth, reach for the sky, and watch him and his brother on the mic in the ring. Now, you said it yourself, it was fake. But you love losing yourself in books, movies, and TV. Well, do you believe him? Are you interested in what he says and does? Do you care what happens next? And they'd look at you like they finally understood. That's who he was. On top of being a father and a husband, he was that bad motherfucker that was believable. And, 100%. In the Attitude Era, the Briscoes would be in the WWE. Let's be honest.
It would have been, for sure, yeah. I mean,
if the Attitude Era was going on and where we could be a little bit more real, they would have been the fucking one of the best ever. They are one of the best, but they would have been
for sure
multi-millionaires, baby.
It's fun to imagine. Yeah, it's fun to imagine, and it still could have happened for them. I think there was still a nice young. Big run, and you know what I mean. Yeah, it's definitely way too
years
young.
Old, 38 or 39 years old.
So tragic.
Rest in power, man.
No question.
No let's get
so anyway, we moved on. Main event. I don't know. Not a whole lot to talk about here. I think it was all for. Again, we talked about it's no DQs because it's Philadelphia. They're going to need to see some tables, some chairs.
Office equipment,
some office equipment, the kitchen sink maybe, and so it wasn't gratuitous. It was a fine match. This is a go home show after all, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean they're not going to do anything outrageous. Another reason for the cage match thing, I guess. It is another good point. Don't overdo it here. Build up towards the pay-per-view. The premium live event. Let's see. Fire extinguisher theory kind of turned it around, used the no DQ thing to his advantage. There was a table spot in the fire extinguisher spot, which again, if you've been there 4 hours or whatever, it's just kind of like, okay, all right, you got the fire extinguisher spot.
Because the problem
trying to remember where you parked.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for sure. Texting your loved one, I'm about to leave in 15 minutes. The thing about that kind of match, especially on a night like tonight, there was no way that they were going to deliver what Philadelphia wanted. They weren't going to do thumbtacks and razor blades at your butthole. Scaffolds. They weren't going to do any of that shit, right? Yeah. It was just like, I don't know, it was just like a PG, no, it was like a G-rated lazy booking. No,
and I'm sure a bunch of ECW marks will say, well, there was no Sabu and no Rob Van, and where was Taz, and where were the Dudley Boys? You're right. There were no Hardys either. I mean,
right.
Look, you can.
It was I think it's the worst thing on this whole show. Well, and it wasn't a bad match.
No. They did what they had to do.
It was just, a match. And to be honest, man, a lot of the other matches were really good. I know we kind of talked through and talked more about the nostalgia of this, which of course is what Raw 30 is about. Mm-hmm. But the Imperium 6-man was a great match.
Oh, for sure.
The Jey Uso and Sammy, or Jimmy and Jay. Well, like
that tag match was
Jay
solid.
And Sammy's
a lot of great false finishes in that tag match. Yeah, we did kind of gloss over that, but that was a great tag match for sure. Mm-hmm. Like tons of moments where I thought they're going to do this. Like this run with the Usos has been going so long that it's like it could end at any moment almost.
Yep.
You know,
And
like
I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to do like a big like. Well, I didn't expect that to happen.
Well, no, and we would have been talking about a lot more about it if that had happened. That's for fucking sure. But
well, I'm glad it wasn't the Judgment Day because I'm not a big fan of the Judgment
me
Day.
neither. But I also would have been like, okay, you know, I guess this is what we're doing. Like this will be what they're known for. It might be the only thing they're known for, but you know, they were going to give them that notch in their belt, but they didn't do it.
Besides those three guys, beside Rhea Ripley, which is what they are at this point.
She would be holding both belts on her.
Yeah, for sure. Like, has any like faction or group of wrestlers ever had the female so obviously the most popular and most over? And I know you can maybe say China, but remember she was with DX, which was the top of the heap.
She wasn't more over than they were.
No, Rhea Ripley is a casting shadow over those other three guys. And I love Punishment Martinez as the Ring of Honor guy around here. I've been watching Punishment Martinez for quite a while.
Yeah.
And, I love Finn, but like, just doesn't.
No.
Can I get Rhea Ripley in a match with Charlotte? That's what we need. She's actually being held down by this faction.
The Mountain Dew pitch black match should be the Judgment Day standing in the shadow of Rhea Ripley.
Yeah,
that's what pitch black feels like.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Big time.
So I guess Brock comes back is the big story. I mean, that was the ultimate payoff for watching all 3 hours of this, and you had to watch till the very end, man. They cut right pretty quick.
Real quick. They don't do a lot of run over these days anymore, do they?
No.
Those days of a 17-minute run over is over.
Crazy, man. Crazy. And I guess I'm excited about Brock and Lesnar. They'll have a fine match. It's not something that I'm going to write home about, I don't think. But I think we should close out with a few notes on how long the show is because we were just talking about it. It's tiring. And I just looked it up to confirm, but the first Raw was 1 hour long. Yeah. First Monday Night Raw was an hour. And I remember it going to 2, I think. I can't say what year it was or anything like that.
It's in the Attitude Era.
It was shortly, not long after, but yeah, a couple years down the road probably. And then I remember, my memory is that that Nitro went to 3 hours first, at least regularly. Because my memory is being in the dorm room of college, and we were just excited for another hour of wrestling to watch. Like, cool, we can watch this one. And then we'll be flipping back and forth, mostly, through the, depending on, we were mostly WWE fans. But it felt cool then to have 3 hours because you had that first exclusive hour, and that was usually the luchadors, everybody talks about those. Some of the best matches happened in that first hour.
Ciclope versus Juventud Guerrero.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Hoovy. And so it felt special, but it's just like anything else. Like the special wears off after a while.
Man, like I said offline, The Godfather isn't even 3 fucking hours long. 3 hours is a lot. And tonight it didn't feel as long because they did give you all those just nostalgic gummy bears.
Absolutely.
So it didn't feel that bad because, man, I'll be honest, I've been watching Raw on fast forward a lot lately. It's a lot of stuff that's like filler because how can you do a 3-hour wrestling show without having a lot of filler? You've got your big high points, and usually, like you said so smartly, beginning of the hour.
Yeah.
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That's where your big moments are. And man, there's just going to be a fucking Baron Corbin versus Elias match that doesn't matter. And it's just a lot. And we love this shit so much. We're up at fucking 1 o'clock in the morning talking about it. But even we're like tapping out after 2 hours. It's why I watch SmackDown all the time.
No question.
SmackDown's fucking perfect.
And it feels shorter. And so does AEW. I'm just like, man, that was good.
They get it right.
2 hours.
AEW gets it right.
2 hours. Yep, exactly.
2 hours is perfect.
Well, and it's not going back. It's a non-argument. They're never going to say, you know what, let's give up a whole hour of advertising or whatever. It's just never going to happen. And even if they didn't do it all live, there would be a recap show or it would be Talking Smack or something like that. But man, it's a good time to be a wrestling fan. I was kind of disappointed when the whole Vince thing was happening, just because that was detracting from the anniversary of Raw. And it was a big moment for me as a wrestling fan, having watched the first episode. I remember it, the transition from primetime wrestling to Raw. And I realize more and more now that like most people don't You know, a lot of wrestling
Yeah.
fans have no clue. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, who is gentleman Chris Adams and this sort of thing, is the
Right,
questions
right.
you might hear, these
Right.
days. So I appreciate even more now how, what a time period that was to be a wrestling fan, even though a lot of people look back on it as a not so great time. That was my time, and as a wrestling
that
fan,
was
that's,
like
that's what you're dealt.
the beginning of Raw was like next gen, right? That's like,
oh yeah, the new
smack
generation,
dab in the middle,
absolutely.
new generation, right? And then somewhere 96, 7-ish, 8-ish, we get the Attitude Era. And then just think about like Raw. And I said this to the waifu. I was like, what show? And this is again another run in by my wife. I go, what show goes 30 years? And she goes, what show do you want to last 30 years?
What show ever could? Yeah,
ever could, besides like a soap opera. And of course, this is a soap opera.
Yeah, really. Yeah,
men.
Days of Our Lives, probably not not a great example.
Big up to that guy. And I'm not a big fan of him these days, but Vince McMahon, mastermind. He reinvented that shit so many times
and set the standard. I mean, there was no Monday Night Wars without Monday Night Raw, which started, and it was live, pal. And the one thing that didn't get over, and maybe we'll use this as the way to sign off, but on the original Raw, and this is such a Vince McMahon classic thing, you can see him having this so choreographed, where they had three commentators, Rob Bartlett, the Macho Man, and Randy Savage, and Vince McMahon were standing there, and they would say, "You're watching Monday Night Raw. It's uncensored, uncut, and uncooked."
Oh, uncooked. I forgot about uncooked, which is, it's not.
It's raw.
Yeah, that's dumb. That's dumb.
Yep. That was 1993, ladies and gentlemen. So for
Man,
that,
I
think
hope we get 30 more years of Raw, man.
I'm good with it. I'm going to be watching. I've been basically every Monday since then. Watch what I end a streak like this. Might as well keep watching Monday Night Raw. We'll see who ends up buying it here this year or next year, but we'll be talking about it here on the House of Kayfabe. I think this is going to wrap it up for the Junk Drover, the other Steve and Adam Harris here on the Lee Street Lounge for the House of Kayfabe. We're signing off on YouTube. See you next time.